All right, here's your quick overview of the study guide for Mexico. Going over the first question. Before the year 2000, how was the president of Mexico decided? What the PRI did was always pick a successor. And again, we saw that in 1988. They had a lot of voter fraud, so that was going on for many years. Again, 1917 to 2000, the PRI had control. So that gets to your second question. Was the dominant Mexico political party. Also, still a political party today. A little left does help out groups like the poor and the peasants in the South. Interest groups versus political parties, just the overall concept. Interest groups have ideas and try to get people to join, have membership dues. However, political parties are different where they actually run specific candidates for office in the elections. The last two, the only two pan presidents, 2000 and 2006, were Fox and Calderon. Your northern area, maquiladoras, produce the goods in Mexico. Again, a lot of those are American companies coming across the border for cheaper labor, less environmental constraints. And that northern half really boomed after the NAFTA agreement was signed. PAN, what their platform is neo-corporatism, pro-business, pro-Catholic Church. Again, a lot of the individuals that support PAN are in the north. All these institutions, the President, Chamber of Deputies, Senate, local, and state government positions are elected by the citizens of Mexico. Cleavage from north versus south, north pro-business, better education, growing in population due to migration in Mexico. The South, usually less educated. You have your indigenous Amerindians. They have the Zapatista movement as well. Most are living in poverty. The Camarillas, that's the patron-client system, which was set up by the PRI, giving benefits to citizens in order to get their vote. The rentier system relying on a natural resource. In this case, Mexico relies on natural gas and oil to fund their government, relying on those foreign companies to come in and invest in that natural resource can be a burden if the price of that natural resource plummets. Catholic Church in Mexico, separation of church and state set up by the Constitution. Up until a few years ago, Catholic priests could not even vote. State corporatist group would have been the PRI in the past. The pluralist interest group system, meaning competition among multiple groups. It's a good thing for democracy to have outside influences running campaigns to promote specific ideas. Mexico and Russia, what do they have in common? They are federal systems. They do have states, but they're weak states. They do have a legislative body with two houses, so that bicameral system. And the population kind of determines the representation of a region. Why do countries like Mexico adopt neoliberal economic reforms? Usually outside pressure. Usually, if they are relying on something like a natural resource and that price plummets, they become debt burdened, they become broke, and need to open up their doors to foreign investors, which allows that neoliberal economic situation to occur. Your criticisms of corporatism limits representative process, participation. The individuals in government are controlling what is going on. The two largest ethnic groups, Mestizo and Indigenous or Amerindian. The Federal Elections Institute was created after the voter fraud. They provide voter ID cards, and they are responsible, separate from the government, for running the Mexican elections. The bureaucracy in Mexico is very, very big, a huge source of employment, especially in and around Mexico City. From 1940 to 1960, you had 20 years there from in an economic boom known as the Mexican Miracle. This was about 6% increase each year in the economy until that price of oil dropped, and then they fell into a large debt, over $100 billion in debt. Mexico versus Russia political parties each have 2 to 3 main parties. Again, the PAN, PRD, and PRI. In Mexico, United Russia, which is Putin's party and the most dominant party, the Communist Party, and the Liberal Democrats. Right now, United Russia, because it is Putin's party, will stay in power. There is more competition today in Mexico because the PRI doesn't have a stronghold on the government in both legislative bodies. The idea for Aristotle is that it's a government semi-owned enterprise, such as Pemex. They used to own a lot of Aristotles, however, they got rid of them when they were in debt and privatized those industries, but they have not privatized the Pemex oil company. For the cartels, you need to know that it was a bloodbath. Calderon said in reforms, one of the most dangerous cities is Juarez, right across from the United States border. The NAFTA agreement integrated the economies of Mexico, United States, Canada, dropped the tariffs, reduced restrictions, and helped for the globalization and Mexico's role there. Constitution of 1917 created judicial review, 3 branches of government, the 2 houses, the bicameral legislature, the sexenio, which is the 6-year terms for government for presidents. They only can serve 1 6-year term, and it is a federal government structure. 2000 was a turning point because this was the first year that a president was elected that was not of the PRI party. Economic liberalization, again, involves a reduction of state intervention in the economy, more free market. Why do countries move towards this? Diversify their economy, benefit the consumers, lower prices. Competition is again to get foreign investors involved. If they're against it, they're losing control. So the PRI would lose control of kind of the stronghold or the influence they had on the government. Also, it can increase the unemployment and widen the gap between the rich and the poor. A couple of key terms here. Subsidies is there, sum of money granted by the government public body to assist an industry or business so that the price of commodity or service may remain low or competitive. Governments tend to want to reduce or eliminate subsidies. Tariffs, tax on imported goods, try to lower tariffs to increase foreign investment. 3 things that legitimize Mexico, their constitution, their political parties, and the free elections. Some of the reforms that transitioned Mexico away from that dominant PRI party. We have the Federal Elections Institute, which would then get rid of voter fraud. The electoral reform, so proportional voting, allowing minor parties to have a say. And then privatizing their Aristotle, so getting rid of those businesses and not relying on them. How can a dominant party promote a legitimate government, or how can it hinder a legitimate government? It promotes by they always have efficient policy making. They will gain the majority vote and put in the reforms that they want to put into place. However, it hinders because there's no competition or choice. A lot of corruption occurs. There's no checks or balances on that one party or that dominant party, and often it turns into an authoritarian figure. Some review questions. Which members in the Iranian government must be clerics? It's the Guardian Council, Supreme Leader. The Iranian Constitution of 1906 included all of the following: direct elections, popular sovereignty, laws made by their legislative body, and a Bill of Rights. An authoritarian figure is someone that does not usually follow the rule of law, so laws that are written most likely in the Constitution. Usually it's one or a couple figures that control all of the government decisions. We kind of went over state corporatism and the criticisms. Again, state has too much control, does not allow civil society to grow, evolve, or anyone else to participate. In China, the patron-client system were factions of groups within the Communist Party kind of competing for power, giving bribes and benefits. Chinese leaders gained their political authority by moving up the party system. Usually start locally in the Communist Party. Eventually they become the general secretary. From the general secretary, then they become the president of China. And lastly, what is the purpose of the upper legislative house in places like Russia, the Federation Council? They provide a check on the lower house, or the Duma. That's Unit 5, Mexico.